All right, good evening, everyone. Sorry about that little delay there. I call to order this February 11th, 2025 hybrid administrative meeting of the Board of County Commissioners to order. Vice Chair Barbeau will be participating remotely via Zoom. We're still waiting on her to join. So for now, we have the four of us here in person. We will go ahead and start the meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Frank Baca. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Baca. Madam County Manager, are there any changes or additions to the agenda this evening? Okay. No changes from the Manager's Office. Commissioners, Commissioner Barbara Baca.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Proclamation 4B will be postponed and heard in our next meeting.
Okay. So that would be, removing item 4B. Any other changes to the agenda, Commissioners? Seeing none, Julianne, do I need a motion to remove that, or?
You'll need a motion to defer, yes.
Okay, so.
I move a deferral of item 4B.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signaling affirmative? Aye. And that carries 4-0. And now, make a motion to, now we'll go on to our proclamations. We just removed B, and I would like to ask if we could come back to item A after a few moments. Mr. Martinez is running a few minutes late, if that's okay with everyone. We'll catch up with him probably after public comment or between items there. So that takes us quickly to public comment. We will now move on to public comment. Before communications, each person has 2 minutes, and you'll be alerted to your remaining time. When your name is called, please make your way to the podium if you're speaking in person. Before your statements, please state your name for the record to maintain order and decorum in the spirit of professionalism and respect for everyone present. Speakers must adhere to the 2-minute time limit. If the conduct of the presenter violates the rules, they may be subject to removal. Saitani, can you please announce the names?
Apologies, Mr. Chair. We skipped an addendum to the agenda, item 3A. That item will need to be added to the agenda to be heard, and it'll become 9B. And the motion will need to be,
No problem. Sorry, I missed that. So I make a motion to add an item A 9B as a late add. That's an item I'm sponsoring to support Senate Bill 16.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Benson. Any discussion on the late add? This is just a motion to place it on the agenda. Seeing none, all those in favor, signal the affirmative. Aye.
Aye.
And that carries 4-0. All right, now we're on to public comment. I believe everybody knows the rules, so Saitani, if you could please announce the names.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. We have 8 speakers today. I will start with the in-person one, Don Schroeder, Adam Silverman.
Don Schrader. Millions of Christians and Jews for hundreds of years have loved the 23rd Psalm in the Bible. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. David wrote the 23rd Psalm. In the Bible, David was praised for killing tens of thousands of people in other nations. Never once in the Bible did David repent and apologize for his mass murders of other human beings in other nations? David killed far more people than any street gang member or serial killer in the United States. David had no conscience against killing people in other nations. Sadly, millions of soldiers now in the United States, Russia, Ukraine, Germany, France, China, Israel, in many nations, believe God wants them to murder other human beings when their government tells them to murder. Crazy, evil. When will we see all people on earth as our sisters and brothers, our family? War is the worst of all crimes. I cannot stop the U.S. from murdering millions in many nations, but I have paid no federal income tax for 46 years so far for U.S. wars, not one damn bloody penny.
Thank you, Mr. Schrader. I believe it was Adam Silverman next.
Adam Silverman.
Looks like he's not here.
And we can go on to Zoom speakers, starting with Dr. Gerardo Cionello. I don't see him on just yet. Oh, go ahead, in person.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, and staff. Thank you for serving. An alternative health doctor and minister. Next Monday is President's Day. We, the people, pray to God for an end to the misuse of taxpayer funds and that President Trump and his administration and this commission would be able to properly restrain our government's spending and taxpayers' money. As a naturalized Filipino-American citizen, I am outraged where our wasteful tax dollars are going. I did some research. Do we actually know what USAID is? United States Agency for International Development. It was formed on November 3rd, 1961, by executive order of President John F. Kennedy. Its mission was to promote economic development and combat poverty in foreign countries. But no, they funded $7,000 for transgender opera in Colombia, $70,000 DEI musical in Ireland, $100,000 to see if Japanese quails are more sexually promiscuous if you give them cocaine. $500,000 to seminars on gender-inclusive language in Mongolia, $2 million for sex change in Guatemala, and $20 million on a new Sesame Street show in Iraq. $27 million was spent on gift bag for illegal immigrants, which should have gone to people living in North Carolina, Los Angeles, and Maui who lost everything. $45 million to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan, $50 million for condoms and foreign aid, and much of that went to Taliban. And $40 million to Wuhan Institute of Biology, which millions of lives were locked down, denied medical care and visitation to dying family, and denied job. They lost their livelihood, and many died because of engineered Wuhan virus, which the USAID funded. And I can go on and on and on. And my question to you all guys, your county commissioners, are you guys truly spending our taxpayers to good use? Thank you. May God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Cianello. I believe Mr. Silverman just walked in. We had just called your name if you still want to speak.
You know what, I don't have what I need, but I don't want to waste your time, so I will just do it from memory. Thank you. My name is Adam Silverman. I am a commercial real estate developer, and some of you I may know, and some of you I haven't met yet. I look forward to meeting you more. Today I'm here to speak against the prevailing wage bill that y'all will discuss later this evening. As a private developer, it is extremely challenging in the environment that we're in today to not only build, to lease, and to manage these projects. And when you guys are looking at this, what you're actually creating is a tax. I know it doesn't seem like it, but it's a tax. There's a trickle-down consequence to it. The consequences is that the contractor will raise the price on the client's gonna raise the price on the end user, and the end user is gonna pass it through to our constituents here in Bernalillo County. It's hard enough as it is to do business in our state, and I really believe that it's the decision of this committee to do the best interest for moving this whole thing forward. We're in a regional dogfight for jobs, tourism, businesses coming to New Mexico, and doing this stuff is gonna hurt. And so I've spoken to the Chamber of Commerce, Terry Cole. She's asked me to let you know that she also takes my position. She may have contacted you directly. I met with a number of the large contractors in town about this. And I think what's gonna happen is if we do this tool that we use for economic development will stop. We'll look elsewhere in the metro area to do these projects. The city, maybe even, they won't even come to the state. So as you guys debate this tonight, please know that the development community and a lot of the business leaders, I wish they could have been here to say this, but I'm here because I care. So thank you so much, and I apologize for being late. I ran in here, and so I really respect the process, but from a private sector development, it's gonna really hinder it. So don't do a tax without a proper incentive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Silverman.
Okay, we'll proceed with online speakers, starting off with Stephanie Mays. Stephanie Mays, if you can hear us.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. My name is Stephanie Maez, and I'm representing the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 611, as well as the New Mexico Building and Construction Trades Council. We're an alliance of 15 trade unions and 15,000 members statewide. Today, I'm also speaking on the topic of House Bill 6. We strongly urge you to endorse this bill. This bill provides much needed wage protections for workers and truly results in countless benefits. For example, it prevents wage undercutting. Specifically, we know that prevailing wage protections prevents contractors from using workers' wages as a cost-cutting measure. This act levels the playing field for all contractors while ensuring fair wage standards. In addition, we know that higher wage standards help stabilize employment and reduce the unpredictability of wage discrepancies in the construction business. It's also important for you all to know that the Public Works Minimum Wage Act compliance ensures that workers on public works projects are paid the New Mexico prevailing wage. And we know that this will help prevent the exploitation of workers and raise income levels for skilled laborers. These are just a few of the reasons we strongly urge your support in endorsing House Bill 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mays.
Joan Baker.
Thank you. My name is Joan Baker. I'm the Political Affairs Director and Director of Outreach for the United Association Local 412. I'm here this evening to speak about the prevailing wage resolution and the support of House Bill 6. I too urge you to go forward and support House Bill 6. And I want to thank this commission for your forward thinking and leading the way on truly making sure that industrial revenue bonds maximize their investment. And with that, I just want to say that if a private company wants to use taxpayer dollars but don't want to pay a prevailing wage, I think the proper incentives to pay prevailing wage when we're giving hundreds of millions of dollars to private companies in tax breaks is the incentive. And those companies should want to follow our rules and better our economy by paying the prevailing wage. So again, I urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baker.
Rhonda Gilliland Lopez.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. My name is Rhonda Gilliland Lopez. and I am the Executive Director of the Mechanical Contractors Association and the Sheet Metal Contractors Association. I am here this evening also to speak and ask for your support for House Bill 6. In assuring passage of House Bill 6, this will make sure that workers are paid fair across job sites, as well as eliminates unqualified contractors to underperform on these projects. And it will help stimulate our economy by making sure that everyone is having fair wages. Thank you very much.
Letitia Vihil.
Chair and Commissioners, my name is Letitia Vihil. I'm the Executive Director of the New Mexico National Electrical Contractors Association. Thank you for the time to speak today. I want to express our strong support for the House Bill 6, as we believe this bill will promote economic growth, encourage skilled workforce, create apprenticeship opportunities for New Mexicans, while also leveling the playing field for our contractors and our workers. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that concludes public comment.
Thank you very much, Julianne. And I want to take us back real quick because I believe Mr. Martinez walked in a few moments ago. So I want to take us back to a very important acknowledgement of Mr. Martinez and his service. Mr. Martinez, if you want to come up to the podium. So I believe Mr. Martinez is a constituent of mine, and he has served as a founding member on our Detention Facility Advisory Board, and he is retiring off of that board. So I wanted to present an acknowledgement to him on behalf of all of us commissioners, thanking him for his service. So I'm going to read this acknowledgement, and then we'll ask you to say a few words after that and come up and take a picture with us. So here we go. The Bernalillo County Board of Commissioners does hereby acknowledge that Bob Martinez, member of the Detention Facility Advisory Board, acknowledging that the Bernalillo County Commission wishes to recognize and honor Bob Martinez for his exemplary service and steadfast dedication to the Detention Facility Advisory Board since its inception in 2015, and acknowledging that as an original member of the board, Bob was instrumental in shaping its mission to ensure Bernalillo County's detention facilities operate in accordance with the United States Constitution while maintaining safe and secure environments. Throughout his tenure, Bob's leadership and advocacy have profoundly impacted the operations at the Metropolitan Detention Center and, by extension, the well-being of the people of Bernalillo County. And acknowledging that during a particularly challenging period marked by the COVID-19 pandemic, Bob demonstrated exceptional foresight by requesting an analysis into the causes behind mass resignations of corrections officers. His insistence on identifying and addressing these issues paved the way for improvements at MDC. Moreover, Bob was a vocal advocate for implementing innovative hiring practices and programs, ensuring that the facility could maintain smooth operations even under difficult circumstances. And acknowledging that Bob's commitment to ensuring that the Detention Facility Advisory Board's actions consistently benefited MDC and the broader Bernalillo County community were unwavering. His contributions strengthened the foundation of oversight and accountability for the Detention Facility Advisory Board for which the advisory board was established. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on behalf of Bernalillo County, we extend our gratitude to Bob Martinez for his years of service and invaluable contributions. His commitment to excellence, fairness, and justice will not be forgotten, and his impact will continue to resonate within our community for years to come. We wish Bob all the best in his future endeavors and thank him for the unwavering dedication to the people of Bernalillo County. Done this 11th day of February 2025 in Bernalillo County, State of New Mexico, by this Board of Commissioners. Thank you, Bob, and please join me in a round of applause for Bob. Mr. Chair. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, I am truly humbled and honored by your recognition. I want to take a moment and apologize for being late, but there's this big eye that you come up on, and I was coming in from our district, District 5, and I apologize for being late. But it wasn't just me. It's the staff, it's the leadership at MDC that really matters. It's those correctional officers that are working every day to protect and serve the citizens and the people of the county. I was truly blessed and honored to be there with them throughout these many years, and I want to thank each of you for your honor. I don't know what to say except to simply say thank you from the bottom of my heart. This year has been a difficult year for me, in that I lost my beloved wife. I miss her dearly, but with God's help, I'll continue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Bob. Commissioner Benson?
Mr. Martinez, my sympathies and my heart goes out to you in the loss of your wife. I'm so sorry. Mr. Chair, I also want to recognize Bob's service also with the Fraternal Order of Police as president. And he's just a stalwart member of our community, volunteering, serving his community professionally, and then thereafter in public service through volunteering, helping to continue to keep our community safe. So thank you so much, Mr. Martinez, for your service.
And I just wanted to weigh in and say my sincere condolences for your loss, sir. And you have just been a tremendous asset to the county in so many ways. Your service to our community and law enforcement, and after that, the work that you've done on the detention facility board, and really appreciate you and your thoughts for the staff that do the work at the facility, for the leadership, for the corrections officers. I think that means a lot to hear that from you. And, hopefully they all know that they have our support as a board and your support as a board as well. And so we're all working for the same mission, and just really appreciate you being here and the many years of service you've had on this board. And I know that you've got another board member in the audience here and some of our corrections staff supporting you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, it's the board, it's the people. That's what's important. And thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir. Come on up and we'll take a picture. We want to take a picture with you if you don't mind. All right, so we're back on our public comment communications items. And first up, we have Sheriff John Allen is here with us in the room tonight. He's going to be presenting to us tonight on some overtime funding that this commission appropriated to his office in the first, I think it was the 2024, FY 2024 budget. And this was overtime funding for clinics, schools, and places of worship. So I'm very interested to hear what our sheriff has to say. Sheriff Allen, take it away.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commission. Good to see you again. First of all, thank you for all your support. As you know, today, right now, we're investigating and involved in a deputy-involved shooting, so we just came from that scene. It's been very busy out there, so if we're a little late, we apologize. Other than that, I have a great staff. Under Sheriff Hadeno is standing here next to me. I'm going to allow him to present, or not allow, he's the one who does all the work for it. And he's the one who does the details, so I'd rather have him present and answer your questions accordingly. He's doing a great job along with our deputies, and the funding is really helping our community, so I'll hand it over to Under Sheriff Hadeno.
Thank you, Sheriff. Chair Olivas, member of the commissions. So how this all came about was kind of a nice surprise to us. We ended up finding out like about a couple of months later after the funding was allocated to us, and what the purpose of the funding was. And the nice thing about it was that it was very general guidelines and allowed us to allocate those resources how we best deemed that it was appropriate. Perfectly at the same time, when we were starting to launch more of a community engagement development in our office, we have several deputies, over 20 deputies, that as an auxiliary duty, they perform community engagement all over the county. We have abused this group of people more than probably we wanted to. But the good thing is that we have a lot of hardworking people in our office that are committed to the vision that Sheriff Allen has when it comes to the engagement with the community. So the original allocation was $250,000 that was allocated for specifically the general guidelines was for welfare checks at schools, places of worship, and clinics. So we got a little bit creative with how we were going to do it. And we were able to utilize that funding to also do a lot of proactive enforcement when it comes to Old Town and Albuquerque, because they were having a lot of crime. Well, there is a pretty historical church at the plaza of Old Town, and there is a Catholic school only a block away. So we were able to perform the welfare checks on those two to comply with what the funding was for, but also to do a lot of law enforcement proactive to deter crime. So we created this presentation. is pretty short, but that's the general guidelines. It was $250,000 provided by the county commission to increase BCSO presence at places of worship, schools, and clinics. This is the general results of that, and I'll explain a little bit of the numbers really quick. The top three lines that are on bold, those are the end results since we were given that funding until a week ago. We have performed 1,434 welfare checks. We have spent 4,114 hours performing those welfare checks, and we have attended 233 sporting events. Every single one of those events have been school-related sporting events. The other good thing about this, these are not only in the unincorporated areas of the county. This is all over the county of Bernalillo, including the city of Albuquerque in the metro area. So we have been going to schools, to sporting events, alongside APS police to give them a little bit of assistance when it comes to the presence in these events. As you all know, and we have been preaching this since Sheriff Allen took office, youth is where we're having the biggest issue when it comes to crime. But youth is also what we need to focus on, keep them safe and make them feel safe so they can actually perform all this type of activities. So for the parents and for the kids wanting to be involved in sports and youth sports with the school and having the ability to know that there's going to be law enforcement presence and not have that fear that what's going to happen at the end of the sporting events, there's going to be a fight, there's going to be a shooting. I think it's a big plus when it comes to the involvement that we're doing with the community. Now, the other interesting part is, if you look below where it says church welfare checks, school welfare checks, sporting events work, the reason why, if you add up all those numbers, it's not necessarily the same number as the top is because we don't just perform one welfare check for one school. So when the deputies work block of 2 hours, they try to hit as many places as possible during those 2 hours. But with the ability to just not drive by, they actually are required to stop, get out of their vehicles. If the church is open, they're required to go inside. If the clinic is open, they're required to go inside. And the same thing for the sporting events. They have to be there for an extended period of time. So the big number is the hours totally spent is 4,114. You will also see some other numbers below. Because of this presence, mostly this happened at Old Town, Albuquerque. We have performed some arrests. We actually had a pretty interesting arrest where every single community engagement deputy that was working was a female, and they got in a foot chase with a guy who was in Old Town, and we put it on social media, and we got a lot of likes and hits. But that's what we're doing. We're not just there to look pretty. We're there to understand that we're law enforcement officers. We have the power to enforce the law, but we're also there to make, more than anything, people feel safe. We have recovered some stolen vehicles. Just this month, these are the numbers that we have already performed: 545 welfare checks on the month of January alone, 141 welfare checks, and 545 hours spent. We have performed 2 Old Town operations, and we continue to do all these school welfare checks, the 238. Most of those have been sporting events at the schools, because we're switching from the season from football, where we had a lot of presence, in the city of Albuquerque, most of the games, because the schools in the city of Albuquerque have the stadiums for sporting events. We attended those, but now we're switching to more of an indoor, being basketball and volleyball. So we really do appreciate the fact that you guys gave us the tools to perform this job. It has made an impact. I left it in my unit, but I actually required to the sergeant that oversees our community engagement to print every single. So when deputies finish their welfare checks, they're required to email their sergeant with what they did, because I wanted to have an explanation to you all of what we're doing with the funding you gave us. This morning, when he went to my office, he gave me 3 manila envelopes, and it's a stack of papers like this. So I wanted to bring it and put it here, so for visual and being dramatic. But trust me, that's how many papers. I'm not going to keep printing and burning that many trees anymore. But I think it was a good way to explain to you all. I think it's only responsible for us to let you know how much we appreciate the funding, but also what we're doing with it.
Thank you so much to Sheriff and Undersheriff. Commissioners, open it up for any questions or comments on this. Yes, Commissioner Barbara Baca.
Sheriff Allen, Undersheriff Herreño, just a big thank you. I mean, you are always there, whatever task is laid before you, and you can spend that $250,000 in a very creative and very dramatic way. And so, thank you. I really appreciate the presentation, because proactive policing works, and our youth are so important for us to care for in so many ways. So, thank you.
Other commissioners? No? I just want to thank you, and I want to thank you for being proactive on this outreach to us specifically, because like you said, this was kind of a surprise. We were all new at that time when we passed that amendment. I think I was the original mover of it, thinking through, a lot of the threats and the, tragedies that we've seen at schools, at medical clinics, at churches. And so it was, this very small way to try to help our law enforcement, help our community. And so, we were all very new at that point in time. We'd all just gotten elected. And so, but I just want to commend you for being proactive about actually reaching out to us and telling us what happened to that funding, because oftentimes, we may fund things and we never really know what happened. So I think this is great, very creative ways that you use these funds to not just accomplish the mission that Commission had envisioned here, but to do it in a way that also met other operational needs in your office and throughout the community, like the Old Town operations that we know that area really needs help. So I just want to commend you all, and more than anything, your deputies that actually do this work for their tremendous service to our community and for putting this funding to good use. So I'm going to look over at our county manager and our finance county manager, and I know they heard this presentation and the money is about to run out soon. So, we're coming up on budget. So let's remember that. Okay.
Hello.
Thank you very much,
Cool.
Sheriff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all. And then our next communications item, we have economic development, our economic development annual year in review with our Albuquerque Regional Economic Alliance. And we have Executive Development Officer Marcos Gonzalez to present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me just switch our presentations out. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I said, I'm I'm Marcos Gonzalez with the Economic Development Department. So this year we'll just provide an overview of what we've been doing in economic development and film activity and other program updates. And then Danielle Casey from Area will provide an overview of what Area has been up to as well. So first, on the economic development project side, we've worked with 5 different economic development projects from LEDA or IRBs, and then have had 6 housing projects. So that's on the housing piece, it's related to 414 new units and 714 in the rehab units. This is where we work with the project developers to provide tax exemption that helps their capital stack and being able to do the different projects. In the economic development side, we've introduced the sawmill projects, Ebon Solar, and then we've been excited about doing the battery storage projects as well, and we'll have more of those to come as well. On the film side, even with the strikes during 2024, we were still busy. Sonoma processed over 60 different permits and location agreements for the county, and we still continue to see a lot of film activity in the county and as a major industry for the county as well. There's even discussions of a couple of different film studios that would open up that would be the challenging part right now with Netflix and with NBC and those pieces is that they can only film what for NBC or for Netflix, and so there's not a universal film studio where any different production could go and film into. So that's kind of the niche that a couple of different film studios are looking at. In other programs, we did close our brownfield grant that we had, over $600,000 that we got back in 2020. We were able to identify 22 locations in the county to actually do the testing. From that, we did 26 testing opportunities. A few locations required additional testing in phase 2 environmental testing. And then some of those also worked with our partners at the state to get some cleanup funds as well. We do have a current in the EPA right now, $1.2 million application to then do this type of testing again with additional sites and with a major foci on affordable housing sites as well that we put into that. And for our marketing activities that we continue to do, we continue to have our YouTube channel, which has been very popular, about interviewing business owners and talking about their business and what led them into it, and to really share also what's made them successful for other entrepreneurs maybe looking to go into business as well as business resources as well. And then our Edge, which we appreciate you nominating different businesses and opportunities to be able to share and push that information out. And the 2 business summits we worked on this year was, the first one was for the CADCA workforce training. This was during our fentanyl week, and how giving business leaders resources on how to deal with the challenging times of the fentanyl crisis. And our I-40 Infrastructure Accelerator Conference that we had as well with our partners across the corridor from LA through here in the metro area. Some other activity pieces that we are doing, we closed out our emergency rental assistance for ERA 1, in which we helped nearly 3,000 county households and pushed out over $15 million of funds to the unincorporated area of the county. Also, our premium pay program has ended as well, and payments to the first line workers, and our small business Main Street facade improvement grant, which was with Commissioner Quesada's ARPA funds. We were able to work with 8 small businesses in improving their facades, and we have 5 that are complete and 2 that are partial, 1 that's almost done and 2 that are just waiting for some of the bridge construction activity to finish before they can be completed, and we will be complete with this grant piece in June of this year. Pipeline, we have a number of affordable housing projects coming forward for either rehab or new projects as well, and we looking at also how we can do additional joint venture partnerships with developers for creating more affordable housing. And of course, we have our legislative priority, which is housing, which we are asking the legislature for 179 million in funds, 100 million for affordable family and senior housing, and then 79 for behavioral health funding as well. And so we continue to look at that as well. And on our quick update on the Tradeport piece as well, we've received nearly $40 million in funding from USDOT and a private match as well for planning and working with rural autonomous vehicles as well. The next steps is really finding to start to use these planning funds and start to build out the Tradeport piece as well. And we also have in review a second RIA Regional Infrastructure Accelerator grant for 1.5 million as well that we should know here in spring 2025 as well. And so with that, I'll stand for any questions, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Casey.
Any questions for Mr. Gonzalez? All right, we might hold those till after Ms. Casey. And
oh, and I just would be remiss if I did not say thank you to my incredible staff with Carolyn, Salama, Monica, and Rujette, a great team that makes our department work, and they're the reason that we look so good, not me. So it's all them. Thank you.
Come on, Marcos, it's also the great ties. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm going to go quickly. As I can see, County Attorney Martinez was trying to read the fine print in the 3,000 slides I gave you. I'm not going to go through all of that, so I know you're already thrilled about that. I'm just going to do a highlight version. We don't do these updates quite a bit in public forum, and so I want to make sure everybody knows. Sometimes folks go, well, how much do you work with the economic development staff? And if I don't get a text or a communication from Marcos every 2 to 3 days, I check with Carolyn to make sure nothing's happened to him. We really see ourselves as an extension of your team, and so not just on project responses, but we're doing things like, working on support letters for grants that the county is pursuing, doing economic impact data and analysis, and offering insights on local business support and retention all the time. As you know, our mission is to really work to create a diverse economy and elevate the standard of living for everyone. And this is really done with a combination of partnerships, public, private, and thinking about what's happening from a regulatory standpoint. And this is across the board, across all of New Mexico, and thinking about our competitive positions on a daily basis. So we do this, and part of this is a reminder to the community. We do this by thinking about the local industries we have, but really how base industries and tradable industries support those local businesses, right? So the more net new wealth we create or generate or attract into the market in those base companies, that's what is helping all of those local businesses thrive and succeed and grow in the community. So we do that from that perspective in our organization. So one of the things we do that through is our public-private engagement model at area, and this really solicits the input and partnership of industry leaders, as you see, as well as our government leaders. We convene economic development directors from around the region on a monthly basis. We also bring public sector leaders together very routinely as well. And we do have agreements in place, a regional cooperation policy with economic developers, and we have one also with brokers, 7 different brokerage partners across the region, just added a new one last month, so that's pretty cool. And we actually also, to the regional scope of partnership, we also just recently added the city of Belen that's going to be part of this, so that's great. And I really do, I say this all the time, I really do want to give Bernalillo County a big high five for that, because you really were spearheads in getting this regional vision going. So thank you. I'm going to hit you on a couple of really big things that we've been working on big initiatives in 2024. Can't believe I'm saying 2024 and it's already over. So site readiness, regional brand, downtown revitalization, and talent and workforce. So the big one, when you think about downtown revitalization and strategic initiatives, Why does a regional group care about downtown? We've talked about this before, talked about it in a lot of forums, because we believe as a regional organization that the urban core of the community matters to everyone. And I'm really proud and grateful that we have been serving as a facilitator for a group that the city's actually paying for, that's advising all the private property owners. Silverman's one of them, all the private property owners in downtown that are now talking about forming an improvement district so that they can contribute to the betterment of that environment. Really exciting. It is up to them. They have to be the driving force, but we're really happy to be an educator and a facilitator in that. They've already had several meetings that we've held at areas offices, another public meeting, and they'll be convening again in a month. So that's pretty cool. From a site readiness standpoint, we have some pretty cool talking points here. We've got some brochures. I'm sorry that I sound like Marge. I've not been smoking a pack of Cools. I just get these spring allergies. I'm totally healthy, I promise. Anyway, so we have a lot of information on site readiness that you can look at, but the big news is we've been talking about this for 2 years. We've been working on this with our partners. Area is not a lobbying organization, but we're an educator. We've been putting together research and competitive position analyses for a long time. That actually served to inform Cabinet Secretary Rob Black's information that he put in front of the governor. So basically what we have right now is the governor has recommended $24 million for a site readiness program for the state. The LFC has actually recommended $35 million, and it looks like SB 169 will be, it'll have its first hearing in committee next Tuesday. This is really exciting. This affects everybody, and these are the tools that we really need to drive forward our ability to satisfy company requirements and actually get them here and not only keep them here and grow them, but get them to want to invest in this community. And quite frankly, in a way that's fiscally competitive. When we talk about a lot of the other bills happening, for us, we always think about it comes down to a competitive position and our ability to compete with other markets, no matter what the solution. Quick return on investment. This comes out of our economic impact models. The one I want to highlight is that we did open 108 new projects in the last 24 months in 2024. And that means we responded to them, provided information. They either became projects or didn't. 70% of those actually received a site in the county in their proposal. And you can see these are made up of large-scale industrial projects in the pipeline right now. Now, we know with a different era and a new administration at the federal level, things are changing with some of those federal incentives. So a lot of companies are watching and waiting and seeing. So are we. But we are on top of it and focusing significantly on how do we figure out how to actually, again, get them operating. We've done a lot of lead generation activity. Just the direct cost of what we spend is listed on here. Doesn't count the administrative overhead or the cost to actually handle our office facility or any of our staffing and experts that help with this. We have a big annual report. You can read this when you have all the time in the world, which we know you don't have, but I do want to remind everybody that this is available to the public as well, so you understand what the county's investment is getting out of area. So that's all available online, along with all of our in-house research reports and publications. Really excited also that our talent and industry profile received a national recognition as well as a statewide recognition in New Mexico last year. We also provide a lot of local business support and a couple other things that I just want to highlight, just that I want to brag a little bit, and I'm very proud, is that I do believe we deserve a best-in-class organization as your regional partner. And so this past year in the spring, and the county was a partner in this because they had to interview you all to see what you thought about us. We actually became the first nationally accredited economic development organization in the state of New Mexico, the 79th in the globe. Very proud of that. And then we also became recognized as an accredited organization through the state of New Mexico. They said, well, if the global group agrees, we agree to. And then we also, we'll take it, we are recognized as the bronze large economic development organization of the year through the International Economic Development Council. The reason that matters to me is we're competing with organizations representing communities of 5 million with $10 million budgets. And we were recognized through all the work we were doing. And it's not just area, it's the collaboration they saw and that we demonstrated in the work that we do every day. thank you all so much. I could talk for hours, but I know please don't. And I'd be thrilled to take any questions along with Marcos. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Casey. Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Benson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not a question. I just want to thank you, Danielle, Marcos, and your team, Marcos as well, and Area's team. County manager and I were just talking about just how dynamic you are, Danielle, in our community and the amazing work Area is doing. I'm proud of it, seeing where the organization has come just in the last few years. And it's not the organization I ultimately care about, it's the community I care about and bringing in jobs, and that's your number one care, and that's why you're getting all these awards. And so just keep it up. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Frank Baca?
Yeah, just a comment as well.
Mike.
There we go. I think that's working. Yeah, thank you for your presentation of the information. It's good to know that you guys are out there doing what you do. I'm glad to hear the emphasis on downtown. I'm a big fan and supporter of downtown. Half of downtown is in my district, and I think a healthy and vibrant downtown is important to our community in so many ways. How people come to our community and see it. It just gives indication that there's life, there's a sign of life here. So yeah, anything I can do personally in terms of supporting efforts in downtown, I really be anxious to do. I do have just a question, sort of a comment. It's just sort of general philosophical and not meant to put anybody in a hot spot. But you did mention in your slide presentation that you hope to improve the standard of living of people in our community. And so that brings to mind my question, or the question of, are we looking to attract jobs, or are we looking to attract high-paying quality jobs?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Marcos, I want to, it's your presentation, so. But
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Baca, I mean, the goal is to attract jobs, but we also look at the high quality jobs as well, making sure that any of the incentive pieces that we're bringing forward to the commission, that we're just not incentivizing like minimum wage jobs, that we're actually incentivizing high quality jobs, which majority of the projects that we brought forward are in the upper living wage job piece as well. So that's where we're at. And the industry focus that we're working with, and Danielle's team really kind of focuses in on a lot of those industries that do have high wage job areas as well.
Yes, to add, Mr. Chair and Commissioner, we do. In fact, when folks ask us about our target industries, we are hyper-focused at Area on aerospace and defense, on bio-life sciences, because the data tells us those are the higher wage jobs that are going to drive our overall economy upward. So it doesn't mean we ignore other clients that come in and say, beat sand, but we are focusing on our outward attraction and the development of the community in that regard. So one thing Area did in the last year is we actually, this is a whole other issue I have that I talk about quite a bit on, also making the argument for bigger state level investment in business attraction in the right arenas, because we led the statewide delegation to the Bio International Convention for all of New Mexico because the partnership didn't have the money to do it and we didn't have the investment there. So we actually bootstrapped that with a lot of partners, had a great showing. We'll be doing that again. So I definitely believe in those industries. I am an opponent to the idea of incentivizing for the sake of incentivizing, but we do need to think about how we are, again, figuring out a way to be competitive, because ultimately, if we want the inward investment, we need to be a competitive market, and competitive can mean having the coolest quality of life and being pretty close on cost. It can be a lot of things, and for each different industry, it varies. So I appreciate the question, and it's definitely a focus for us and an important one.
Thank you.
Commissioner Barbara Baca.
Thank you, Marcos, and thank you, Danielle, for being here. Very good presentation. I too have a follow-up on Commissioner Baca's point and wrote down exactly that. You are here to elevate the standard of living for everyone. This commission is behind that. We are behind, incentivizing. I don't know if that's a word, right? But we use it a lot. But we like to create incentives. We also must consider and support our residents that are here, our local and small businesses. So I'm so pleased that you've agreed, and this group, the commission, is going to be working, rolling up our sleeves to take a look at our economic development programs in the near future with some working sessions and engage the community in how we do that. And that standard of living for everyone is really should be our effort here. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, Madam Commissioner, if I can add, I hate the word incentive and incentivizing, because it really sounds like you're giving somebody a cookie to do something they maybe wouldn't otherwise do or doesn't make sense. I really like to look at our economic development tools as ways to get us to an investment that otherwise would not be able to come, that also enriches the community in a way that benefits folks across the board. So I think we'll be looking forward to having that presentation and conversation around how are we competitive and how do we combine all the right tools to be competitive for projects that we want in the community.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Director Casey, I'll start on your side of the organization. I wanted to thank you for the great Economic Development 101 seminar that you put on just a few weeks ago. I was able to attend, and I think Commissioner Benson was also online, and that was really helpful. And actually, I got a really good idea of something you just mentioned about our strengths as a community, right? We often talk about, well, we've got these problems with crime and this and that, and you talked about aerospace, biosciences, several other sectors where we were highly competitive, where we had maybe per capita actually a more attractive or a more competitive market. So really building on those strengths. I did not realize that walking in, so I learned something. And you had a great team there. Some of your all of your presenters really were excellent, and you had just this diverse group of folks from our native communities and pueblos, small towns, big city, everybody there. And I thought it was really helpful to kind of just get a little intro into the important work that you all do, and just want to commend you and your organization on all the good work that you do to bring quality development to our community. The other thing that I just wanted to highlight, because Marcos skipped over that slide pretty fast, and I think it's maybe the most important slide in his whole deck, was actually I think the second or third slide that says 6 housing projects in process, 414 new housing units and 714 refurbished units. Just want to highlight that's a huge undertaking for what is basically our smallest department here at the county, and making a big impact on what is the top priority of this commission for a number of years running. And so I want to commend you for highlighting that in a very simple, it's pretty easy to understand, right? And so I think that is just speaks volumes to what we're trying to do as a commission, and to our county manager and our staff implementing that in the community in real projects. So appreciate the partnership that both of you bring to our whole community, and thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And then just to comment for the pipeline, we have 5 projects that we're bringing forward this year to close that are just in the pipeline deck, and we have more in the deck as well. So that's something that that we're still working with a lot of the housing developers and seeing how we can help them and getting more creative as we can to be able to do it, just because the gaps are going to continue to widen, especially with stuff that's happening on the national level with tariffs and everything else. So we'll continue to get more and more creative to ensure that your all's goal of having more affordable housing for everyone in the community is able to be solved.
Thank you, Marcos. And while I have the moment here to highlight it too, I want to thank you and our county manager and our whole team for being up in Santa Fe and working on this problem, and working collaboratively with our partners at the city and our state legislators, pushing for this $176 million ask. 79, I'm sorry, 179. I gotta get my numbers right. I don't want to shortchange this, even a couple million. It all counts. But really, you all have put together a really strong case, a really solid package showing that Bernalillo County and the city of Albuquerque can deliver on our goals, that we hope that the legislature invests in us to invest in our community. And I know that with folks like you and the folks at the city, if we are given that investment, we will make good on that commitment. And I appreciate your work.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And then just to highlight on that piece is that we're asking for $100 million to fill a gap. The number of projects is actually $273 million in the gap. But if those projects were actually be developed, it'd be matched with over $500 million in other sources. So it's not all government-based building those projects, but matched with a lot of money from the private sector as well.
Well said. Thank you both for being here this evening. Appreciate it. All right, I have a couple of statements to read into the record here as we move along in our agenda. The first statement, I offer the following regarding the closed meeting held Tuesday, February 4th, 2025 at 1 p.m. Only those items described on the published notice and agenda for the closed meeting were held on February 4th, 2025 were discussed at the closed meeting, and I need a motion for approval of the statement.
Move approval.
Thank you, Commissioner Baca. Do I have a second? Second from Commissioner Frank Baca. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signaling affirmative. Aye.
Aye.
Passes 4-0, and this statement will become part of the record of the minutes for this meeting. And the second closed meeting statement, I move that the contract attorney be authorized to proceed with the matters discussed in the closed meeting held on Tuesday, February 4th, 2025, within the parameters set by this commission to include matters published in the closed meeting agenda. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
And I make a second? Second. Thank you. And any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal the affirmative. Aye.
Aye.
And that passes 4-0. Thank you, commissioners. All right, item 6 is going to be appointments to advisory boards and committees. We have one air quality board vacancy on our joint city-county air quality board. We have 2 nominees. We have Ms. Josephine Lopez, nominated by Commissioner Frank Baca, and we have Mr. Jarek, I'm going to mispronounce this, Godish. Ghosh, thank you, Commissioner, sponsored by Commissioner Benson. We'll be voting on these in the order in which they appear on the agenda. The first nominee to reach a majority vote will be appointed. This is for a at-large vacancy, so that's why it's done that way. But I did want to give each of the sponsors a moment if they wanted to say anything about their nominees. And we can go in the order. You don't have to, but if you want to say anything, Commissioner Baca, did you want to?
Your mic.
No, I would just like to say that I've do not personally know Ms. Lopez, but I have reviewed her resume. She is highly recommended. She, as I note, is, if I'm not mistaken, a previous member of the Air Quality Board some 7 or 8 years ago. She is a member of my district, my area, District 2. She's expressed personally interest in serving, and I give anybody who's willing to take on this sort of task a lot of credit because it's a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of energy, and certainly appreciate her interest in doing so. It is a challenging work, no doubt. I just think she has a PhD, an educated individual, and seems to be very motivated to participate and be a part of this process. And so I would happily move her to be appointed.
Thank you, Commissioner
Second.
Frank Baca. Commissioner Benson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jarek Ghosh, this is his second opportunity in front of the commission to be appointed for the Air Quality Board. I serve with him in the Kirtland Community Sustainability Board. His resume was passed out today. He's highly qualified technically, as well as personally, but he's currently the airspace manager for Kirtland Air Force Base. And Mr. Chair, he actually came tonight, and so I'd like to ask for you to offer the courtesy to introduce himself, because I think the world of him, but I'd like him to present himself.
Of course. Go right ahead, sir.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioner members. My name is Jarek Getch, candidate for the Air Quality Board. I just wanted to say I've been here in Bernalillo County for about 2 years. The reason, you're probably wondering why I said it that way, Bernalillo. My wife is Hispanic. After 1 year of not correcting me, me saying Bernalillo, she finally said, it's not Bernalillo, it's Bernalillo. The double L is a jo. So she beat it into me, and Bernalillo. So thank you for having me. I appreciate your time.
Mr. Getch, also, can you explain where your wife is from? Because that is pronounced differently by locals, but
Okay,
your
so
wife.
yeah, so she's Puerto Rican, so there might be some cultural differences there, but she beat it into me. So Bernalillo. So thank you for having me. I'm not going to bore you with my resume. I'm just going to go over some of the highlights. Again, my name is Jared Getch. My current role at Kirtland Air Force Base is the Airspace and Installation Mission Sustainment Manager. It comes with a lot of roles and responsibilities. I'll start off real quick. I don't know if I want to call it environmental activism, but my interest in the environment was about 20 years ago when I worked for the city of Midland International Airport. Investigating wildlife strikes by aircraft, and so we had to come up with a plan on how to fix that. And so I developed the Wildlife Hazard Management Program for the city of Midland, Texas. Later joined the service, and currently I'm NEPA certified in evaluating environmental impact statements, environmental assessments, and things like that. So I'm certified to write them and interpret them and give my opinion onto what those entail. I also, as Commissioner Benson said, I serve on the Kirtland Community Sustainability Partnership. And so with that, on the base level, we do have sort of an equivalent committee, and it's the Sustainability Committee. So unfortunately, many years ago, you all probably heard about the water contamination due to the base. And although that's largely resolved, I still see those water quality reports that come in. And so as a member on that committee on the base side, it is my responsibility to ensure that we are in compliance and that water is monitored. And so again, I just wanted to thank you guys for the consideration. I'm a hard worker, I'm diligent. Ask for your vote, and if you do vote for me, I don't think you'll be disappointed. I'll help get things done. I want clean air and clean water. I know the citizens of Bernalillo County want it too, and so I'm here to provide that service, and I'm here to do whatever it takes to help the citizens. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions you may have about my resume.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Commissioner Benson, do you want to close?
One question. Where do you think your role at the Air Force Base best coincides with this role? The other candidate, her resume is excellent. Maybe not as technical, but how would you fill that role professionally, and how would that coincide on this board?
Sure. So the Air Force is my employer, and of course they send you to a lot of classes. One of them was the NEPA environmental class, and so with that, NEPA, the law was created in 1970. At that time, the law was very generally written, but it basically authorized each individual department of the government, and even down to the local county level, how to implement NEPA. And so, I'm very skilled in that. There's different levels to it. So, for example, on the Air Force side, there's what's called categorical exclusions. So, for example, let's say I want to build a new building in town, and categorical exclusion could be, we built the same building before, it's the same height, it's the same style, we've done it before. Okay, you're excluded from continuing on the environmental process. If that gets challenged, it goes to an environmental assessment. which can take up to 1 year. If there are further challenges to that, it can go to an environmental impact statement, which is the biggest one. And you guys probably know, previous administration took a look at that and said, hey, why is it taking 10 years to build a highway? Let's get it down to 2. And so they basically made it environmental impact statements can no longer go past 2 years. So that's really been my focus, and within that is kind of wrapped in underneath it is air and water. So that's, I think, where I can be a major player in this. I think I can find innovative solutions to help out the citizens of Bernalillo County, and so I'm here to help and be of assistance.
Thank you, Mr. Getch. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to highlight Mr. Getch's resume. Technically, professionally, he fits the bill. The resume of Ms. Lopez is very impressive as an art curator for museums. But technically, I think it's a clear differentiation. So I just ask for your vote for Mr. Getch on this position. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Benson. Did you want to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to move to appoint Mr. Getch.
Okay, I'll second. So we have 2 motions on the table. The first motion is for Ms. Lopez. Are there any other members wishing to make any kind of comments or ask questions or anything like that? Yes, Commissioner Barbara Baca.
Thank you, Mr. Getch, for being here. I have met Josie Lopez, and she was also a teacher at the South Valley Academy. And I feel that she really has a feel for our South Valley. I mean, I'm just on the other side of Central from that, and I think that some of our big issues on this Air Quality Control Board is some of the problems that we have with the air quality and the air shed that is really a focus on the South Valley community. And so thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate, and always listen to your wife. I agree with that sentiment, but thank you for being here.
You're welcome. My wife is an educator here in town.
Great, thank you.
Yep, thanks, appreciate you.
All right, and I just want, again, I want to thank you too, Mr. Getch, for being here, and you have a really strong skill set for this, and really appreciate you putting your name forward. So with that being said, I'll call the question on Ms. Josephine Lopez. There is a motion and a second by Commissioner Benson. All those in favor, signal in the affirmative. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, that passes on a 3-1. So that concludes this section of the agenda. Thank you, Mr. Getch. All right, Madam Clerk, could you please provide resolution numbers for items 7B, 7C, 7D?
Yes, Mr. Chair. For item 7B, FR 2025-18. 7C is AR 2025-19. And 7D is AR 2025-20.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. So this consent agenda has been published and made available to the public. Therefore, I move approval of this consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Barbara Baca. Any questions or discussion on consent? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signal in the affirmative.
Aye.
Yes. Commissioner Benson?
Aye.
Thank you. That passes 4-0. Takes us to adoptions of ordinance amendment to county code. We only have one. We have one item tonight, that is adoption of a low-income property tax rebate ordinance. Madam Clerk, could you please provide an ordinance number?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Item 8A is ordinance 2025-10.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And so we do have DCM Shirley Reagan and representatives from the Finance Department to present. Before we do that, I'd like to convene a public hearing. We will now convene a public hearing. Did anyone sign up to speak, Julia?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There were no signups.
Thank you very much. And now we will hear the presentation.
All right. Hello. Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. My name is Audra Garcia, and I am the Senior Fiscal Analyst at the Finance Division. On January 31st, 2025, a notice was published in the Albuquerque Journal indicating the board will consider adopting a low-income property tax rebate ordinance pursuant to NMSA 7-2-14.3. This motion is to approve an ordinance authorizing a property tax rebate to benefit low-income property taxpayers beginning in tax year 2025. The statute states that the county shall notify New Mexico Taxation Revenue Department of the adoption of the ordinance and furnish a copy of the ordinance no later than September 1st of the first taxable year to which the ordinance applies. Upon adoption of this ordinance by the board, staff will provide a copy of the signed ordinance to the Taxation and Revenue Department in compliance with the statute. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions? Not seeing any. I would like to make a motion for approval on this item.
Second.
A second from Commissioner Barbara Baca. And last chance to weigh in here. I know we had a lengthy discussion at the last meeting on this, so I think everybody's been heard. I just want to say, again, a big thank you to our finance staff and all of our commissioners and county attorney's office, everybody that worked together collaboratively on this to arrive at the product that we have now. It's actually a pretty short ordinance. Just by looking at the document, we removed any language that referenced to any kind of tax increase or anything like that. This is a very simple item authorizing this important rebate to our lowest of low-income property taxpayers in the county. And I am very grateful to all the staff that helped us get here, and I think that this is a really good move for our community to help some people that haven't seen a lot of help in recent years. We can see now that a lot of the efforts on the federal level are not doing much to help and only compounding the problems. Just look at the price of eggs and tariffs on building materials and property insurance skyrocketing, things like that. So this is just a very small way for us to give back to our community and help people that are struggling to afford the costs of daily life. So I think it's a really important signal and a really important statement of our values here at the county to support our residents. Yes, Commissioner Barbara Baca.
Thank you, and I would second that. Thank you for the staff for really rolling up your sleeves and really taking a look at this. Thank you, DCM Reagan and all of your staff. I just would echo what we have said earlier, and that is the importance of affordable housing and the importance of keeping people, what this does, it has the potential to do is keep people in their homes by giving this small rebate to those who are in the greatest need. And so I am going to support this, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. All those in favor, please signal in the affirmative. Aye.
Aye.
And that passes on a 4-0 vote.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, next up, we've got our resolutions for the evening. We've got two of them. Madam Clerk, could you please provide resolution numbers for the following items?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Item 9A is AR 2025-21. 9B is AR 2025-22.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So first up is a resolution of support for HB 6 IRB project minimum wage. And this is an item that I am sponsoring, so I will just go ahead and give a brief intro presentation here of what this does. This is a statement of support from the county, stating our support for this bill. And what this bill does, I think it's actually a pretty simple idea. And it basically says that if you are receiving funds through an industrial revenue bond, essentially a tax abatement, or abating your taxes as the county, or in this case, any IRB in the state, this is a state law. If you are receiving that tax abatement, then you are required to pay the prevailing wage. And so this is already common practice. This is already law for public projects, right? We heard some of our commenters earlier that talked about this on public projects, for example, this building or anything that the county does with its own funds. We're required to pay that prevailing wage. And really, I think that what that wage does, it doesn't require the use of union labor or anything like that. It just says that if you're gonna use public funds for construction, you need to make sure that people are paid a living wage. I think it's a pretty simple concept. And so for me, in introducing this and reading this bill and thinking about how we should move forward on this, I think that because we are abating taxes, right? We are not collecting future revenue on these developments. We are, in effect, giving money to a private developer. It's really not a lot different than us funding a project. We're just not funding the whole thing. But these are increasingly common throughout the state. We definitely see them here all the time. And so I think this is a very simple ask, asking the project developers, project owners, to ensure that our workers are protected, our community is protected when they come in and build a facility, asking for public tax abatement, that they adhere to some very minimum standards on what their employees and contractors on their job are paid. So with that being said, I'd like to make a motion for approval.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Barbara Baca, and then open up the floor to any questions or discussion from other commissioners. Commissioner Barbara Baca, Commissioner Benson next.
Just a brief comment on this. We've heard a lot about economic development. We've heard a lot about the incentives we provide. We've heard a lot about really elevating the standard of living for everyone. I think that is what this is about. I think that is what our legislators are trying to do with this. So I'm in support of this. It's elevating our workers when we do these projects that also really provide incentives for businesses for these IRBs. So I think that it is a really thoughtful suggestion by our colleagues up in Santa Fe, and so I'm in favor of supporting that. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. And then Commissioner Benson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to voice my opposition to this. The concern that I have is that New Mexico is the slowest growing state economically in the Southwest. When you look at our surrounding states, they really want businesses to come, and we obviously don't. The supporters for this bill aren't job creators. They are representing laborers, which that's half the equation, and I absolutely support laborers. But what this will do will slow down IRB applications, make New Mexico even less attractive. And so when I vote on things, I try to ask myself, will this create jobs or not? Or will it have the opposite effect? And this will have the opposite effect, at least in terms of the IRB. Maybe we can attract businesses through, without government support. But the surrounding states have the full force of their government attracting employers. So I doubt it, but I cannot support this in that it will not support job creation. Oh, by the way, if you want to raise wages, increase employers, increase jobs. That will do it. They will be fighting for the people that are here looking for jobs. They'll be fighting for them, and they'll be paying more competitive wages than even what this bill will do. What this does is that it will pass a tax on to the consumer because it's going to shrink margins, which will then be passed on to the customers, and ultimately it'll have the impact that you're talking about with tariffs, that it'll raise. It's like when we raise minimum wage, it just raised prices. And so the people that are making minimum wage, their dollar just goes, doesn't go any further than it did when minimum wage was $7.25. Now it's $12 an hour. So this will have the same effect. It will pass on expenses to everybody in New Mexico and feed it to these union members, but it won't necessarily create any more union jobs. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Benson. Commissioner Frank Baca.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, this is a philosophical debate that's been going on forever, and I don't think we're going to resolve it here tonight. But I certainly fall on the side of increasing our wages. I've heard so many companies, not just recently in the 5 weeks I've been on this commission, but over the many years I've been on this planet, talking about the economic development. And they always talk in terms of how many jobs they're going to create. And that seems to be the foundation of their proposal and their advocacy. We're going to create jobs. Well, let's create good jobs, in my opinion. And I think that's really the foundation of economic development, is having good quality paying jobs. And I think of my own personal experiences in business, and I think about my son, my youngest son, who is quite the entrepreneur, very successful, I might add. And, you know, one thing he told me one time is that even during COVID, he never had any difficulty hiring. He never had any difficulty retaining employees to this date. And it's because he pays his employees well. He pays them well, he treats them well, and it's become a magnet for business, for growth, for economic development. And so it's a chicken or egg thing. But I think until we add revenue into the economy, we're going to be at the same pace that we're at. I get, and I hear Commissioner Benson's argument, and it's, you know, it's well reasoned. I totally get it, but having been in business myself as well, yes, I understand the shrinking margin, but there's lots of different places to cut. And I don't think that cutting your employee costs is the smart way to go. And in fact, I've always thought that's something where businesses should really brag about, and I think a lot of businesses are doing it. The Fortune 500 companies are really promoting how well they treat their employees, how well they pay employees. That is a marketing tool. And so I definitely will support this resolution, and because I do think it is in the best interest of our economy and the best interest of our citizens. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Frank Baca. I wanted to comment just briefly on one thing that Commissioner Benson said. I want to make sure the record reflects accurately. This does not require union labor on these projects. It is silent on unions. It only says that prevailing wage is required to be used. And so, you know, essentially that means that in this way, all workers are treated equally. So you don't have to hire union workers. You don't have to, you know, have anything to do with the union. It just means that it really means that you're paying workers equal pay for equal work. I think that's actually a pretty fair thing to say. If you're going to be a union plumber and a non-union plumber working on the same job, you should be paid the same wages. And I think it's also, we had this conversation last time on a different subject, but I think it's important to note that you do get what you pay for in life generally. And so when you are using cheap, you know, bare bones labor, you're typically going to get what you pay for. And so oftentimes you may see lower quality work. You may see, you know, less training that goes into those folks. A lot of times those workers may even be coming in from out of state, although it could, you know, that can happen on both sides just depending on what's available. But I think this is an investment in our community, and people that generally work here, live here, raise their families here. And it's just a statement of basic support for being able to live here on a living wage, doing a hard day's work, blue collar work. That's what this is generally about. Most of these folks are people that are out, welders, plumbers, framers, you know, concrete finishers. That's the folks that this is talking about. So not people that are necessarily making huge wages, but really they deserve to be paid a fair wage for their work, work that builds our state. And the last thing I want to say about those low-wage workers is that oftentimes we find ourselves in government up here subsidizing them on both ends, because we're offering the incentive on the front end in the form of a tax abatement. And then when you're using low-wage, you're paying low-wage workers, oftentimes those same workers need Medicaid, they need food stamps, they need other forms of public assistance and social safety net services that government also subsidizes, whether it's us here at the county or it's the city or the state or the federal government. And so we're not really gaining anything. The party that is gaining on that is the 1%, right? The people that own those projects, the big developers, the out-of-state corporations that are coming in, and they're saving on those projects by paying those low wages and transferring that cost to the local governments and to the local tax base. So with that being said, if there's no further debate, call the question on this. All those in favor, signal in the affirmative. Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed?
No.
Passes on a 3-1 vote. Next item, our last resolution of the evening, is a resolution of support for Senate Bill 16. This is a Senate bill that allows unaffiliated voters in New Mexico to vote in major party primaries. This is also a resolution that I'm sponsoring, and really the rationale on this is about fairness. I think that we have what is approaching a majority of voters in New Mexico. I believe it's actually the independent voters are the second largest voting bloc in the state. And there's one major party on either side of that. And so, they're approaching a majority in the state. But basically, in the publicly funded primaries that precede the general elections, the only folks that can vote in those primaries are Democrats and Republicans, and you have to be registered as one of those parties. And so, for me, this is about just leveling the playing field a little bit and allowing those folks to choose. That's what this bill does. It's basically, you can go into your polling place, and if you're an unaffiliated voter, you can ask for one or the other ballot. Can't ask for both, but you ask for a Republican ballot or you ask for a Democrat ballot, and then you can vote in that party's primary, allowing you to participate in the process. And we know that in the vast majority of our seats in New Mexico, for example, in legislative elections, they're not competitive. Most of the time, many times, there's only one candidate from one party or the other, and this goes both ways with gerrymandering. And so the primary is really the election, right? That's where the winning candidate is essentially chosen. And so you're denying all of those independent voters the ability to really fundamentally participate in the process and choose their representation, because they can't participate until the election's essentially over. And so for me, it's just about leveling the playing field and bringing people into the process. I think this has the potential to reduce some of the polarization that we see in our society, because I think that typically those unaffiliated voters are the less polarized of either side. And so I think that has the potential to really moderate some of our political discourse and bring some rationality, but also just bring more people into the process that currently aren't there. But I think fundamentally they want to be there. They're registered to vote, and many of them do vote, but they can only vote in 1 out of 2 elections that we hold every major cycle. And so with that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Benson. And I want to actually, before we go to the commission, I want to make sure that our county clerk has the option to talk here. I spoke to her a little bit today, and she'll articulate her concerns about this, but I think that generally we agree on the point that getting more people into the process and opening up elections away from that partisan leaning is a good thing, but the process, how you get there, really matters. And I want to make sure that Clerk Kavanaugh has a chance to weigh in on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'll make it brief, I promise. I absolutely agree with you. Inclusion and accessibility are the most important things when it comes to participating in our democracy. And I don't think there's anything wrong with making sure that those who are able to have the ability to vote. And I do agree that there is a large portion of our voting population that is disenfranchised by not really being able to participate in the primaries. I think that the idea of opening up primaries is, a positive one. Definitely want to be more inclusive. I like in this particular bill that although the effective date is July of 2025, it wouldn't actually affect the race this fall, because that is a nonpartisan race. It wouldn't actually affect any races until 2026. So that gives our offices some time administratively to prepare, to get ready, to do the appropriate training for poll workers, and so I do really appreciate that. I think there is always room for conversation about how that administration works. I think that sometimes legislation is passed without taking enough of the administrative hurdles into account. But, I am confident that as long as we have the conversations about what administration really looks like, ultimately it can be a positive thing. So thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So we'll open the floor if there's any commissioners wanting to weigh in on this. No? Commissioner Frank Baca?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll quite be honest with you. I am going to vote against it, not because I'm philosophically opposed to what you're saying. It's just, quite frankly, I'm not sure that I'm fully informed enough to be able to speak to this. I do know that we have same-day voter registration as we speak, so I'm not sure what this adds. And not knowing that, I don't personally feel comfortable, supporting this resolution, although I appreciate the intention. I certainly appreciate the argument. It makes a lot of sense in terms of participation. I think participation is crucial, and I think we all should do everything we can to increase participation. But again, I think there are other ways to do that, and I think both of our primary parties right now, I think, can always do a better job of reaching out to their constituents and those that are independents or on the fence to bring them to their side. And so although at some point in time I could see myself perhaps supporting this as I become more informed and educated and knowledgeable about this, at this point in time I just don't feel comfortable enough to vote in favor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Benson?
Mr. Chair, thank you, Commissioner Frank Baca, for your comments. I guess I would say that the value that I do see in this, although you're right, you can change party affiliation quickly, but there's a lot of disenfranchised voters who don't want to claim a party. And the tribal mindset of Democrat and Republican has created this group, and it's growing, like Commissioner Olivas said, Chair Olivas, to the point where it's now the second largest group that don't necessarily identify with one or the other, although they feel strongly about candidates. And so I think that's the beauty of this, is that it does open the door for them to vote on the preferred candidate. And primaries can be very, very tribal themselves. And so this just opens the door quite a bit to all of our constituents, not just two parties. And so that's why I support it. Increasing voting I think is a good thing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Barbara Baca?
Yeah, I agree with my colleague Frank Bach here on that I haven't had an opportunity to study it. It was a late introduction. I usually do a little bit more homework than just go to, this is a support for legislation up at the Roundhouse right now. So I intend to pay more attention to it. So I'm going to take a step back though and say, what would my 24-year-old daughter and 26-year-old son say to you, Mom, about this? I mean, they always vote because they are a Baca Chandler, and so we always talk about it. But there are a lot of 24-something or 26-year-olds who stayed out of the recent elections because they felt disenfranchised, or they felt that they didn't have or they were throwing their hands up in the air. So I like what the clerk is saying to us, that, we have time to make sure that it is administered properly, that if it can encourage access to voting and more people at the polling places, I am in favor of it. So because this is a recommendation to our legislature of pushing this forward, I will support it. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Baca. And I think that the last thing I would just say in closing is I respect what you're saying, Commissioner Frank Baca, about the ability right now to effectively do this. You're absolutely right. If there's an independent voter and they want to vote for a particular candidate or in a, on a particular party ballot, they absolutely can go in and change their registration. But I think to both of the commissioners to my right and left here, that's in some cases a very big ask of someone, and they may have strong feelings about a particular party, not identifying with sort of the national brand of either party, or probably in many cases both parties, right, with some of the toxicity that we've seen on both sides. So I think that while that's absolutely possible, I think there's a narrow group of that larger group that is going to be willing to make that change, and then they have to go back in and change it after the fact as well. So it's just asking more, I think, of the voter than most of us would do generally. We're just used to going in there, getting our ballot, voting, and walking out. And so I think that this just makes this a lot easier to do and easier for people to participate. But I totally understand. It's a new way of doing things, and I appreciate the conversation that I had with our clerk earlier today. Really educated me on sort of our own processes and how you roll this type of thing out. And so one thing I do know is that I'm confident in her and her team that regardless of what happens, they're ready to roll. And they'll do a good job with it either way, and hopefully they can be involved in the conversations if and when this bill moves forward to actually make it better up there too. So I think that that's something that will happen. So with that, if there's no further debate, yes, Commissioner Benson did. So with that, if there's no further debate, call the question. All those in favor signal the affirmative.
Aye.
And those opposed? All right, passes on a 3-1 vote. Thank you, Commissioners, and takes us to our final item of the evening, Economic Development Amendment of the Topgolf LLC LIDA project terms, and we have Executive Development Officer Marcos Gonzalez to present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the Commission, the Economic Development Staff's request approval of the amendment to the Topgolf Albuquerque USA LLC LIDA project participation agreement. So we're going to adjust the company's job creation commitments from 200 to 167 and reduce the county's LIDA contribution from 250,000 to 168,670 and extend the compliance period for another 5 years. So essentially within that 5 years, if the 167 isn't kept, we would be clawing back proportionally the amount of LIDA funds in. For historical context, we adopted this in 2018 along with the city of Albuquerque as a LIDA project for the development of the Topgolf project. And due to COVID, the company had various challenges with meeting its job numbers and took on different tactics for how they actually attract and retain their employees. With that, if there's any questions about the PPA, I can answer those. And if there's any questions, for Topgolf itself, Tyler Summers from Topgolf USA is here to answer those questions as well. But we'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Questions from board members? Okay, I do have one. I guess I was just trying to find the right page here, but it's Exhibit A in the packet. And basically, I'm wondering if there is, it's not included in here that I could find, but what did the original Exhibit A look like?
There was with the 200 employees and 132 of them being full-time, and we were going to 167 jobs and 89 of them being full-time employees.
Right, okay, I understand what you're saying there, but basically I was trying to figure out where their current job targets land in this structure, but within the original tiers, right? Because what we did here with the revised tiers is we lowered those targets. So where would the 132, which is their current number, right? Where would that have fallen, and what sort of clawback would that have required?
Mr. Chair, so the original requirement was that 200 employees be obtained and 132 of them being full-time and the rest could be part-time. So only 132 had to be full-time jobs and the rest could be part-time jobs. And what we're saying now is of the total jobs created would be 167, including part-time and full-time, and 89 of the 167 have to be full-time.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and I'll come back to this. I'll let Commissioner Frank Baca jump in and we'll come back to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question, just in terms of the timeline. I'm not exactly understanding. So what I'm seeing from reading the summary is that Topgolf was to open its facility by December 31st, 2021 with 200 employees, but they needed to meet their target by December 2022, is that correct? In 1 year, in other words, in 1 year?
Mr. Chair and the Commissioner Baca, the goal in 2021 was to open the doors with 200 total employees and 132 of the 200 being full-time employees and the others could be part-time employees.
Thank you, but Mr. Chair and Mr. Gonzalez, but by what period of time are we talking about they needed to meet that goal?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Baca, the goal was to create that in 2021, but due to the ongoing pandemic, that goal wasn't met.
Right, but they opened up on December 31st, 2021, right? So were they supposed to have met that goal immediately upon opening or within the next 12 months?
Commissioner, Chair Olivas and Commissioner Baca, the goal would have been to, when they finally did open their doors, to meet the job creation thresholds, which is why we're amending it here today, because they weren't able to do that. And if you'd like more information on why they weren't able to meet those pieces, I'll defer to Topgolf as well.
Yeah. Well, again, it's, to me, it's important because if it's during the pandemic period, I totally get that, but I was thinking that, until I looked at this, I was thinking it must have been through 2024, a couple of years post-pandemic, but if it was only for a period of time during or immediately after the pandemic, that I understand. So sure, if I could get some more clarification, I'd appreciate it.
And Mr. Chair and Commissioner Baca, it did take us a little bit of time to back and forth with the company to get to this amendment to agree on to bring it to the commission, and we didn't bring it forth right away during the pandemic, the height of the pandemic, but I'll let Tyler speak to more about their employment thresholds and where they're at today.
Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. Tyler Summers from Topgolf Corporate in Dallas, Texas. Happy to be here. So essentially, what happened is during COVID, obviously very hard on the hospitality business, and so Topgolf ended up shifting the hiring strategy for kind of how we run the venues, and so it kind of led to a decrease in the amount of full-time employees, and we do have a lot more temporary employees. And the latest count I had was 165 jobs are currently being utilized with the 30-hour threshold, and 89 are full-time currently. And so basically, we don't only have the 100 or the what was the first number? The 167 jobs. There are a lot more people, but it's just when you factor in the hours. We have a lot of college students, younger people who are doing more the bartending, server, bay host type jobs. And so it wasn't really a issue of ramping up the employment. We basically are settled when we open the venue, but it was really more just a shift. And so the numbers where they're at now, we're confident that we're going to be able to maintain those without you all having to utilize the clawback. But if you have any further questions, happy to answer them.
I have a question.
Commissioner Barbara Baca, did you want to jump in?
My question is currently, how many employees do you have? So you said you have 165
Yes, let me just double check my notes.
And then along with that, what are your part-time paid and what are your full-time paid? I mean,
Yes, 165 jobs currently under the requirements of the agreement, and 85 are full-time.
and their level of pay is what?
I don't know that, but I would be happy to gather that info and I could share it with the commission.
Because it wasn't that written in, sorry, Mr. Chair, Marcos, isn't that written into our agreements, usually the target jobs of full-time and part-time jobs, there's a range of salary? No?
I don't think we have.
We didn't have that in this one. Mr. Chair and Commissioner Baca, for this agreement specifically did not have that, but for the full-time employees, it did require the benefits be paid as well.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so I think that conversation, and Commissioner Frank Baca, I'm happy to go back to you if you want to continue your questioning there. But I guess what I was getting at is, under the current framework, status quo, is Topgolf in compliance with the original agreement?
Mr. Chair, under the current framework, based on the jobs that were just reported, they wouldn't be in compliance with the creation of the entire 200 jobs, and then 132 of them being full-time employees. That's why we're amending the application to not have the full amount of LEDA, but only a proportion amount for the jobs that they are able to create and actually sustain at the development.
Okay, and so typically when, I've not seen one of these sort of on the, this is, as the project is finished, typically the most of the ones I've seen are when they're starting. So now seeing sort of the ending of it is, since they didn't meet the original requirements, wouldn't they be subject to clawbacks per the original agreement? Isn't that standard in these things?
Mr. Chair, under normal circumstances, it would be, but due to the pandemic, we're looking to make those adjustments, even though that it's taken us a few years to bring it forward. But due to the pandemic not being able to meet the job targets that were outlined before the pandemic. And so it's just been some back and forth between the company and the county to actually come to this new amendment framework that we see here today.
Okay, so I think that I'll say one thing and then I'll let you jump in and then I'll go to Commissioner Baca. So the pandemic, I can see where the pandemic would have, per the original agreement, would have maybe temporarily reduced the number of jobs because people weren't going out as much. They were, scared to be indoors. There was a lot of, issues with entertainment venues at that time. So I can see where there would have been a temporary reduction and we might, let's say, extend the window, like instead of from 21 to 25, I don't know if that was what it said, but from 21 to 25, you do 23 to 27, so that you're capturing a window that excludes that sort of peak pandemic phase. But what I think I heard the gentleman say was that Topgolf completely changed their business model. The pandemic happened and they probably realized, hey, we don't need as many employees. We have these other ways we can do things and we can do it without this. So I guess I'm just still having trouble kind of wrapping my mind around why a change is necessary and favorable.
So originally, Topgolf was supposed to get paid by the county within 30 days of opening. But it's my understanding that our development team talked with the county, and because we were going to miss the target, they agreed, let's bump it out. And so obviously we're way past 30 days of being open at this point. And so in discussing with Marco, saying, hey, what if we proportionally reduce the amount of jobs you're realistically going to have, and then we'll adjust the amount of funds we're going to provide, that's why it seems like a fair resolution for the county, because we're still, being a great job provider, giving a lot back to the community, and you all also have less financial impact.
Okay, Commissioner Frank Baca, I think, wanted to jump in with another question here.
Yes, and I'm still not sure I 100% fully understand this, but going back into my memory banks 3 years ago, which is ancient history for me, quite frankly, I recall your companion entertainment complex, Revel, was opening up around that same time, very close in time. I don't know, one before, one after. I remember thinking about it, this seemed like it almost was planned to open up together, because I know that there was some thought that there would be, crossover, traffic, if you will, through the venues. And I recall when the pandemic hit and how Albuquerque just shut down. I mean, I recall that, and that, I'm not a golfer, so I didn't go to Topgolf, but I went to the other Revel complex, and, it was just, it was decimated, and how they survived, I have no idea, just by, dint of hard labor by, the owner and management team. I generally would not be in favor of this, although I'm not sure if I totally understand what contributions we made and the trade-off between what we're now, giving up. And I'd be happy to hear that so I can fully understand it. But again, generally philosophically, I probably would be against this type of diminution, if that's the right word. But because of those circumstances, I recall, and the fact that the target date was for opening, I think I'd be a little bit more, more inclined to support it. But I would like to hear the answer in terms of, so I can understand a little bit more.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Baca, I think from what I'm understanding is the wanting to know what the new target will be for the employees, or?
No, in terms of the comment that we are giving less.
Yes.
The county was giving less in exchange for, them paying.
Yes.
Less, So,
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Baca, yes, we are paying less, because we had in 2018, when the LIDA was approved, it was for $250,000. There's two parts to this development, so we're only talking about the Topgolf element itself, and then there was a LIDA increment with the actual developer. So only the Topgolf portion was set to provide $250,000 upon opening in 2021. For the creation of 200 jobs, and 132 of them being full-time. Now, and fast forward to today, because they're not going to be meeting that job target, we've reduced down the $250,000 LIDA grant to the $168,000, so that way it's proportional. We basically divided the $250,000 by 200 jobs essentially, and for giving them credit for the jobs that they have created and are able to sustain. So that's how that equation was factored out. So it's only for the jobs that they've created based on the original $250,000 amount.
Okay, thank you. I think I understand it.
So I think I figured out a way to ask my original question in a way that's maybe more direct. What would be due to Topgolf under the agreement as it currently stands? How much money would the county be required to pay them, or how much would they be required to pay us? It depends, right, on, I don't know, or the compliance.
Mr. Chair, so just for everyone's context, we have not paid anything to Topgolf. We're still holding the $250,000 in a special fund in accordance with the PPA. I believe that we wouldn't owe them anything, but let me defer to bond counsel. I don't have the PPA in front of me.
have the actual agreement either. So, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I believe that if I understand your question correctly, I believe that the county would not owe Topgolf anything under the agreement as drafted in 2018. So without an amendment, the county would not owe anything to the company because the company was not compliant with the terms of that PPA.
I think we would have just been subject to the clawback. The county would still have to pay the money, and then we just have to pay back any clawback. But the clawback was never the full 250,000.
So, I mean, I'm open to the will of the commission here on this, but I feel like at a minimum, there's more information needed here on this because it's not clear to me what the status of the compliance on that original agreement is at this point. I understand the pandemic happened and stuff like that. But, you know, then we waited 4 years after the fact to make an adjustment. Once there was a stable environment that the owner knew would sustain, you know, I assume they're pretty confident that they're gonna be able to sustain these jobs over the new period. So I think, you know, this is kind of unfair in a way to many other developers that might come in and, you know, they have to hit their job targets or they don't get their, you know, they don't get their money or they get clawbacks or whatever. But in this case, 4 years after the fact, we're gonna go in and say, actually, we're gonna change the terms and move the goalposts and reset the whole thing after the fact. I'm just not really clear that that's a really equitable direction to go in after, you know, a lot of others, developers and business owners comply with their agreements and do their work as they're mandated to. So, you know, my feeling is we really need to understand what the terms of the original agreement were and what would be required of the county or what would be required of the entity before we proceed. Commissioner Barbara Baca.
Yeah, and on top of that, I would really like to know, we've been talking about economic development and building jobs that are really, you know, jobs that make a difference to our economy and to our workers and so forth. So I also would like to know what the full-time and the part-time jobs pay, and I haven't heard that yet. So I'm kind of leaning toward deferral, you know, if we can get more of these answers. Otherwise, I'm just gonna have to vote against it. I think, I didn't come in here with that intention, but I'm not hearing that the fairness and equitable, you know, treatment of our business community and our workers is not ringing true to me with this discussion. But I'm willing to defer it if you can bring some more, you know, facts to us. But it's not a motion, I'm just kind of giving you my, you know, feeling at this point. I had great concerns when Topgolf was suggested at the beginning of, back in 2018. I was just in the cheap seats watching, and I know that the city had a very different philosophy about this than the county did. There was disagreement on it, and for reasons that I think are significant, you know, what type of high-paying jobs are we really creating here? And then we weren't able to, and I get it that COVID threw everybody off the rails. But here we are now, and I just have those concerns. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Marcos, I think you were getting ready to jump in before I gave the mic to Commissioner Baca, if you had anything you wanted to add.
Yes, Mr. Chair, just to let you all know, so with the current piece, they would have a clawback due back to the county of like $25,000. If we went with this framework, if we actually had paid out the $250 back in 2021, but we can defer and get more information and provide these clawbacks into a table for the commission to see, and then work with Topgolf on getting you the wage information that you would want to see as well. And just for context on the City of Albuquerque Topgolf, the city has paid out Topgolf, and they didn't amend their PPA to amend it to account for this new construct and the new job numbers. That money's been paid out to Topgolf, just to let you know on what the city's done.
Okay, thank you, Marcos. Commissioner Benson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Gonzalez, the way I understood that is that this is in lieu of clawbacks. Is that correct? That there originally we would have paid out the funds and then clawed back. And what this is, this effort was to rewrite it so that they weren't given the initial money, but then there was no clawback. But the net result would have been the same. That's the way I understood that, unless I'm wrong.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Benson, you are correct that we're basically amending it down, so then Topgolf would be in compliance with the new numbers, and then we wouldn't be clawing back any funds, and we would basically be settled.
Because we wouldn't have overgiven, because they didn't meet that need in the first place, correct?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Benson, correct, it would have been modeled down, but then we also are getting 5 additional years of requiring Topgolf to keep the jobs and the job numbers for the performance period, because technically the performance period would be over. So we are pushing the performance period out for an additional 5 years of being able to track and being sure those job numbers are kept that would be amended today.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I think the request to postpone is also reasonable, to make sure that all the numbers are clearly spelled out, just to make sure that, everything is matching. The ultimate, I think everybody's concern here is that we're not paying incentives that that the community is not getting a reward for, which I believe that's what you were doing here. But I think if you build a table that shows what the original clawbacks would have been, and this does the same net result. Plus, it'll give us more information like wages and stuff, which weren't in the contract, but it's good to know. Thank you, Mr.
Chair and Commissioner Benson and all the commissioners were happy to provide that additional information for additional clarity.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Baca?
the other concern I would have is what kind of precedent this sets for future agreements like this, and that is something that we should really take very seriously. So I move deferral.
Second. Any discussion on the deferral? Are you looking for a 2-week deferral?
What kind of timing do you need to?
25th is our next meeting.
It would be March 11th. Mr. Chair and Commissioner Baca, if we could have till the first meeting in March, that would give us enough time to work with Topgolf on getting that employment information.
That'd be fine.
March 11th? Okay. Seeing no further discussion on the motion for deferral, all those in favor signal the affirmative. Aye.
Aye.
4-0, that passes, and we'll see you again on March 11th.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner.
And I would like to add, if you could just provide, probably all of us, with the original, not LIDA,
Yes,
sorry, I'm using the wrong word, but, or no, it is LIDA.
Yes, the word's correct. Chair, Levis, will provide the original PPA and then with the table of information, so that's all spelled out for the commission to review.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And for
Appreciate you being here.
the context, Mr. Chair will also provide the city's PPA, just so you can see that too.
That would be great.
Thank you. All right, our next commission meeting on Tuesday, February 25th, 2025, we'll have a Board of Finance meeting at 4 p.m. right here in the Commission Chambers. The same day at 5 p.m., we will have our regular administrative meeting right here in Commission Chambers. With that, if there's no other business, this meeting's adjourned.